Hello. Hello.
Hello? Can you guys hear me? Yes, loud and clear. Thank you. Thank you so much for your patience. I am giving it a moment to all the other presenters. As I was saying before, we're having a little bit of technical issues, but we're doing our best to have this done and ready. I really appreciate your patience. I'm so sorry for this. As I was saying before, I have also to send you to give you guys an apology on behalf of Rocco from Chablé Hotels. He got today an important phone call from the hotel owners of Chablé Hotels and couldn't be with us this morning, but he sends his apologies on behalf of him. I'm truly sorry. This was just a last minute type of thing and was not on my plans either. I just received this phone call this morning. So it was like really sad. Laszlo, is that you? Hello? Okay, Laszlo's having a little bit of issues getting in. I mean, we're different time zones and everything like that. In the meantime, I do have a question for all of you to start this webinar while these two experts get in touch with us, which I hope it happens. One of them is, who's here in the audience is practice sustainability at the moment, and in what extent? That we would like to know if you guys are practicing any kind of sustainability in your jobs, in your houses, and the hotels, or anything related to the world travel and tourism. We would like to know what you guys are practicing, until what extent, so we understand a little bit better the level of the audience that we're going to be talking about. I mean, we have two people in this panel that have been practicing and teaching sustainability around the world, not only to hotels, but also to departments of tourism, institutions, businesses, and their personal level in them as well. Laszlo, can you hear us? If you can hear me or hear everyone else, please be so kind to say something. We welcome you here. There are two buttons next to the top of your screen, Laszlo, that you can see. One is video and the other one is audio. Try to press it a few times. Ina, thank you so much. You are an ecotourism specialist. That's great. It's very great to know that we have someone here that has also knowledge on what sustainable tourism is. It. Irwin, I know I'm dealing with the same thing. I can see you guys. We're trying to get this thing done. Laszlo can hear me, but we cannot hear him. Let's see. I'm so sorry about this. One of the many things about technology. Well, let's see when he can start again. One of the minimal questions that I'm having to the panel, and I would like to discuss also with all of you, is that when we talk about sustainability in the tourism area, we're talking about the hotel, the destination of operations, and there is a lot of aspects that are involved. The community and the natural resources and all the above, but there are conflicts in between those areas. So we're going to be discussing one of those topics as well, how the approach of healing landscapes can be incorporated into nature and human infrastructure. What is it all about, this healing landscapes and all those other things that we are incorporating nature into our buildings to make it not only more appealing, but also productivity for our employees and the people that work in there. What does it mean to expand sustainability beyond the product? What is that product that we have to identify exactly what is the offering? We're going to be asking also about some practical examples on how this sustainable practice have changed in the business for the good of the business. What are the benefits of it and what are the risks about it too? If there is an overlap between ecotourism and wellness tourism, if they're related, if they're married, if they are competing against each other, and if a model of green sustainable tourism can actually help us reshape and create a stronger travel and tourism industry as we come out of this situation and, you know, go against current predictions where we're hearing different people talking about 3 to 6 months. Other people are saying 1 year. Other people are saying 3 to 6 years. So just really involving in harmony, creating a harmonious business model with nature can help us to reshape, to become stronger when we come out and attract more business for everyone and create a better business model. Let's see, there's a very, very, very great question. But we are doing our best to get in touch with you. Both of our panelists are right now restarting their computers and trying to get here. I'm really sorry about this, and I appreciate your patience. I wish I can have a lot of knowledge about the theme, but I don't. I am as urged as you guys to start looking into this. So I'm being patient myself, and I appreciate any effort and compassion towards this process. Is internet and technology can be daunting. So here we are. That's what we're doing. Nikki, you're saying that you have a client in the UK interested in sustainability and agritourism, local food producers to get in touch. Yeah, we are. Actually, that's very important point that you're putting out there. We recommend, one of the things that we've been talking about most of these webinars is partnerships, where now it's more than important than ever to be able to have partnerships with local producers and your local community to become stronger, to create a strategy in conjunction that not only puts together the business, but also the community to make it revive again. As you may have read, most of the predictions that I've said about tourism at the moment talk about domestic tourism. So if we look at this as an idea on generating domestic tourism, but in a way of creating a community instead of just a hotel generating a destination where all the pieces that are involved into the tourism of the destination remain as a clock that work around each other and can help each other to grow and to move forward. And I'm still waiting for Laszlo and for Denzel. So let me check on them. Please don't go away.
Hello.
Okay. Hello, I can hear you. I hope everybody can hear you too. Hi, Laszlo.
Hello.
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ah!
Hola, hola.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you. Denzel is having some issues as you were before. But
Yes.
let's dive in to see if when he can join. So I started just conversing and asking our guests about what is the level of sustainability that they've been doing, how they've been involved in sustainability and ecotourism, and now everybody's saying that they can see you and hear you, so we're good. Yay! Okay, great.
Yes. The usual solution. You had to restart computer. So that's the usual thing. So anyway, I'm here. So sorry about it, everyone. Sorry.
Okay, that's great. So we have here, let's dive in. So let's not make people to wait. When we talk about sustainability, Laszlo, what is your journey? What has been your journey in this spectrum in your career?
I think when anyone talks about sustainability, and including myself, I had started 20-something years ago, looking at what kind of impacts tourism has or tourism can have at destinations, host communities, and local economy. So the trilogy of impacts of tourism, the social, environmental, and economic. And since my specialization has been for 25 years is the environmental relationships with and from tourism, obviously it was a natural continuation of how this can be managed, how this can be improved, what kind of solution techniques, legislation, management tools we have to minimize/optimize environmental impacts. And then comes the social impacts, and it comes the economic benefits, because the trick is, and this is when you can talk about sustainability, is the optimization of impacts between the three domains. Because often you have a minimum expectation economically, but that already is too much for society or community and the environment. Then what are you doing? So you're still pushing because that's money. So it's always the management of and optimization of possible impacts. So that to me, that's what sustainability, and as we had talked about it, it's mainly about responsibility as well, that everybody knows that they have certain level of responsibility and what they can do to fulfill that responsibility. And that's the bridge that's, to me, is missing a lot. Because everybody is looking at, I am a conservationist and I want to protect every single species. I am a historian, I want to protect every single building. I am a business developer, I want to maximize profits. And then you make these people sit down in the same room and they obviously have very little common. And then when the tourism planners, managers come in and say that, well, if you did this, then you also can be happy at the same time, but you have to look for solutions. So the general approaches of sustainability, I find it difficult to cope with because it's so location-based.
But let me ask you this. I mean,
yeah,
Deborah has a good question when you're mentioning, each perspective, and I think you touch on this. What about not political or cultural dimensions?
Well, don't forget, you have all of it. You can have the political dimension, the scientific dimension, the environmental, the society, the cultural, the heritage, the nature conservation. You have all of it. When you talk about sustainability, you need to understand every single pillar and what tourism may have any impact on either of them or all of them. So that's a critical thing here, that you have to understand the complexity of your activities and the complexity of tourists coming to you. And this is when people have problems, that they believe that they talk about the impacts of tourism, but they actually talk about the impacts of tourists. And it's not the same.
Hi, Denzel. Can you hear us? Welcome.
I had to reset my whole computer.
Here we go.
We got through that.
Never mind, I had to as well.
Yeah, we got through that. Well, Denzel, welcome. We were just talking about a little bit about Laszlo's journey when it comes to sustainability. So I'm going to jump in with the same question to you. Okay. Talk to us about a little bit about your journey in the sustainability world.
Well, I think I'm old enough to say that I started in sustainability before the word even existed. I mean, we were working on sustainable sourcing of raw materials. I'm a raw materials guy. I come from a background of botany, plants, and plant medicines and plant extracts for cosmetics and beauty care. So I've been in this for 35 years, and nobody used the word sustainability, but we were still doing it. So yeah, I think the concern for longevity, for ethics, for environmentally friendly issues have been part of my life from the very word. As I say, there was no organic certification, there was no fair trade, none of these words existed, but we were still doing a lot of it. And I think that's a message I would like to bring across to whoever's listening, is there's a lot of words out there, there's a lot of new phrases, but there are a lot of also interesting people who have been working in this area who don't, who are little known, who've been doing this for a long, long time. Just to give you a very quick example, and then you can talk with other people. The company called Ricola is an Swiss-Italian company called Ricola. They make herbal sweets. They're very famous in Italy, in Switzerland, and in the German-speaking world. Everybody eats Ricola sweets. Now, this is one of the most ethically minded and sustainable companies. They've been working on working with farmers all through the Alps for many, many years. They use pesticide-free products. They are organic. All the things that we talk about as, new. These people have been doing it for 50 years, if not more. Probably if you ask them in 100 years, I don't know. And yet they don't mention it. They don't need to, it's part of their philosophy. So I think that's also a message there. People who talk loudest are not necessarily the people who do most.
Okay, great. Thank you for a nice background of history. That's great, a great example. So let's jump into the questions. So when we talk about sustainability in the tourism industry, where we are all related, are we talking about the hotel, the destination, the operations, the community, the natural resources? I mean, is all the above as a complex? And you think, guys, that is a conflict? There's a struggle in there? Laszlo, what do you think?
Laszlo, you start.
Thank you. I think this leads us to the very core of the issue. When you talk about sustainability, or Denzel mentioned whatever terminology you want to use, because that's now, more like 15 years ago, it was a very sexy term. So we have been using that since, just like wellness nowadays. Sorry about that, but that's what it is. What do you want to sustain? You want to sustain your business operations, like your hotel, and then your financial success, if you wish, or actually want to sustain the local ecosystem as well as community. Because
but can you do both? That would be the question.
Obviously, you can, but most of the time there would be some conflicts. There would be some sacrifices. And what destinations, hotels, resorts, cities, beaches, mountains, whatever it is, when they fail to achieve an optimum result is that they just focus on one component. When you say that I want to keep the local community, then you would need to provide certain kind of jobs or trainings. What does the local council do for achieving that role? Do they just let an investor, developer build whatever they wish to build because they just paid for the land or paid some duties and paid some backhanded money? So there you go, you build whatever and you provide 5 jobs for housekeepers and everybody else is coming from somewhere else. But that, that's a management job. That's a task. It's a planning activity, and then you would need to look into all the consequences that you do. And I'm going to give you a very far example, a distant example to many of you probably on this call. The historic city of Baden-Baden in Germany. For example, they have a very strict policy on what is possible to be built, what level of quality they want, what kind of services what they want, and what kind of prices we're talking about. You can't just build something because you feel like so, because they say that you ruin the whole destination. You can't just disturb the business of I don't know how many enterprises, and you cannot turn the life of the local community upside down. So they have very strict policies and local regulations about what services can be built. And guess what? They have been doing it rather well. Everybody is very jealous when you look at Baden-Baden of all the successes they have achieved. But it doesn't come for free. It doesn't just happen. That's why.
So that example that you're given is an example of sustaining the community, sustaining the destination. I mean, it's a model that involves regulations about everyone's lives involved and businesses and even the environment.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but look, any action, there is a consequence. some sort of consequences, everything. I mean, we're talking now, we're using electricity to have our computers running, and it's maybe green sourced, maybe it's not green sourced, I don't know, but you know, that's happening. So every single human activity has some impacts and consequences. As long as you understand the extent and the nature of those consequences, and you manage them or you prevent them, then you are basically, Denzel might agree on that, you are working towards some sort of responsibility related strategy, and you implement them. But this is hard work. You need to do sacrifices, you need to give up certain things, you need to cut back on certain things, and you can always blame tourism for certain impacts. Always, it's easy because it's a victim, and it's just lovely because it's a luxury thing. But when you say to local communities that, guys, if you really wanted to have sustainability in your neighborhood, you would need to control certain activities, what you do. You need to change certain practices, what you used to be doing, because it's actually not supporting sustainability related parameters. And this is when it becomes really hard. It's easy to control tourists because they are, you know, just coming here and then ruining my life. But when you say that, well, that also means that you shouldn't be using that much energy, you shouldn't be using your car for every single meter of transport, then locals say, sorry, I'm living here, that's my right. And then you start to have massive conflicts.
Denzel, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to look at it a little bit differently from the point of view of a company, because you started off about company and what, you know, the issue of sustainability. Often, many of you heard the word triple bottom line. I don't know if you can see my computer. Yeah, you probably can see mine. But the triple bottom line basically is about people, planet, and profit, and trying to do all three. And so you do get an overlap between. That's why I was trying to give you that diagram, which is basically you have a circle with profit, you have a circle with planet, and you have a circle with people. And it's where those three interlock is what you're aiming for, is to try and get an overlap. But you obviously get situations where they're in conflict, in many situations. So that's why the approach to me that makes sense to me is if you can get a company, whether it's a spa, a wellness facility, a plain hotel, or a gym, to think beyond any one of those. So it's trying to find those areas within the operations in which those three things work together rather than work against each other. Because, as Laszlo was saying, you know, it's not easy. You can't control it all. I mean, in the case of Baden-Baden, which is a place I know very well indeed, I used to live about 30 kilometers from it. The hotel cannot control it on its own. It needs it needs the community, it needs the town itself, the Stadt, and it needs the Kreuz, and it needs the whole county and the state, all the different levels to work together, and that can be very difficult because you cannot control everything yourself. So to me, a sustainable business, it can only be sustainable in terms of what it can control itself.
Yeah, and Denzel, just responding to what you say, the enterprises are happily applying sustainability, less impacting practices, products, services, and brands, as long as they save money, for example, and you can sell it very easily to either any of them. And you say that, well, at the same time, you're saving money and also save a little bit of resources, that you have to tell the reasons and the ways in which it goes. Otherwise, it just appears to be a restriction. And that doesn't go that well. And that's why you have to understand the complexity of what you're doing and what you want to achieve. And that goes often beyond the boundaries of one corporation or organization.
But we will say then you're talking about, you know, a product, whatever that product will be. either if it is the business, the services that they're providing, the community that they're preserving, or either the natural environment that they're surrounded. So it's like you're saying, then so the three circles are trying to get together, and you're aiming for that conjunction of the three. So what does it look like? What is that? Can you provide us a little example that you guys during your journey, your business journey, your professional journey, that model that actually has those three together? I mean, Denzel brought up a company that goes to consumers. But for example, Laszlo, you are very dedicated to what is travel and tourism and destinations. Can you name one of those examples where that conjunction is happening and they're actually doing something good, that they're actually successful?
You are imposing parameters which would require hours and hours of discussion, unfortunately. Because because
a little simple one that comes up to your head that you're thinking, okay, they're doing a good job.
Now imagine that you are you measuring success. This is one of my critical issues when we run masterclasses on whatever it is, that please define me how you measure success. Is this numerical? Is this number of guests? Is it revenues? Is it profits? Is it market share? Is it saving money compared to last year? You saving tax? What is the measure of success? That's already, to me, is a very complicated measure here of how you measuring that. And but when you go beyond the boundaries of one organization, then it becomes the complex tools and measures of how you can look at the benefits of one activity. The cost and benefits analysis, which is not numerical. You also have a lot of qualitative measures that you have to look at. But an impact assessment study or a feasibility study looks at numericals only, not the qualitative measures, because you don't look at qualitative at all. You just look at the quantitative measures. But I think the talking about examples, when you decided as a business that you put the sustainability, eco-orientation, responsibility into the core of your business, then it becomes a very easy thing to convey to your guests. And I'll give you an example in the end, but it means how you source, let's say, water for showering, how you source the beds, how you source the food, what options do you provide in the menus, what kind of products you use in your spa, how you are treating your water, and so on and so on. You can always have a tiny little component of it, because that looks good. You can talk about it on your website, that I am saving energy, so I put on solar panels. That's good, it's lovely, but it's just a tiny little puzzle of this whole thing. And when for guests it becomes visible and understandable that this is what you're doing, then they're very happy to give up things. They're very happy to sacrifice the traditional expectations. And my favorite place in that sense, which I visited not that long ago, in the Carate Peninsula in Costa Rica, in the Cordovado National Park, where you already have to walk to the camp on the beach. There is no road. And you start from the entrance of the place is that you have to walk yourself, or there will be a horse-drawn carriage that takes your luggage and yourself to the place, because that's what it is. And then they say, well, we have electricity as much the solar panels can provide, and we run out, then it's finished. Then people get used to it, and you go back to this old, thousands and thousands of year lifestyle that you get up when the sun rises and you go to bed when the sun sets, for example. And of course, then onwards, when you have a clear concept of what you're doing, everybody will love it, and they say that, oh, I haven't done certain things for days, but you actually will love it, because it comes with the whole concept of it. Otherwise, if you didn't learn about the whole approach, you will look at it as oh, I'm restricted, they don't do a very good service, I am disappointed. So that's why it's no point to do some piecemeal action of just picking one item. It might have a good impact on the business, it might have a good impact on your sustainability or footprint, but when you start from scratch or you do a revision, you can do the whole screening and whole scanning of what you're doing, and you can apply it accordingly. And not every guest, obviously, those who go for stag parties to Cancun, they don't care about sustainability measures, obviously, because it's not their primary interest. But you can start the whole operation based on very systematic review of your services and your value propositions and your guest expectations. It's not an easy job. It's not just buy some technology because that's cheaper. It's just maybe an excuse.
I think that's a real. My experience is that is a real issue. It's a tough job because if you just try it in one part of your business and not in the other part, it looks out of kilter. So I'm sure you've been to, as Laszlo, there are many spas that I go to all over the place. But for instance, they're very, they do a wonderful job in terms of maybe the product area, that they source local raw materials, try and make some of their own cosmetics. They use traditional knowledge, and they do a lot of community linkage in that sector. But then the architecture is completely wrong, and they're using concrete and plastics, and so the one doesn't fit the other. The other very common one that goes almost constantly wrong in many parts of the Caribbean, which is where I have another home and I live a lot of the time. You get a wonderful atmosphere of the spa and the facilities, the water and the thermal, and yet when you come to the food, they eat rubbish. So the whole, they have a wonderful product, wonderful therapies, but the actual other side, which is incredibly important to your health, which is what you're eating and what you're drinking, they completely, because they're run by different sections of the company. The chef has got no relation with the spa manager. The two have totally different directions. They're going in different directions, and you've got to get them all working together. Otherwise, you lose. In fact, one kills the other.
Yeah, that gets me to the next.
There is one thing, then, still, just to take your thinking further, and it's relevant to your questions, that you start making mistakes, especially in the Caribbean and in Central America, when you label your facility as a spa. That's when you start making mistakes, because oh, absolutely. Imagine you have most of these places would expect guests from the US, right? That's standard.
Yes.
And if you wanted to sell spa to US guests, they would expect high-end, very nicely designed, beautifully orchestrated facilities, because that's what you get used to in the Fairmonts and the Marriotts and all the rest of it. That's what they understand under the term spa. So forget spa. You still can do massages, still can use the treatment, still can use the raw materials, the cacao, the piña, whatever it is. You just don't call it a spa, because then you instantly create wrong expectations. And then they will be dissatisfied, and they will say that you didn't do a very good service. But it's your fault because you call it a spa.
Which, it's part of the things that wondering when you talk about sustainability and ecotourism, and you start making a relation with wellness tourism. So are they married? Are they separated? Are they competing with each other? Is there a harmonious relationship here, or are they really getting divorced? What is your thinking about that?
Oh, well, I don't think we need to go to litigation here, or any kind of issue like that, or even divorcing, because who takes care of the children after that? No, it's more like you have to understand that it's not exclusive. the orientation, the approach, the business approach and the planning approach is applicable to business tourism as well. You can do business activities based on sustainability measures if you wish. It's possible in a different way, certainly, but you can do any kind of tourism activity because it's an approach. It's not necessarily a tourism form. I know we might enter into kind of semantics here, but I don't want to. But sustainability to me is basically an approach to how we manage it. And this is not necessarily a tourism form per se. Yes, I understand that you have sites, places, destinations which are more towards the sustainability as such, but you still can be a cultural destination, you still can be a wellness destination, you can be a beach destination, it doesn't matter what you are, as long as you apply the expected techniques, approaches, protocols that are showing that you understand what sustainability really is. And from that sense, wellness tourism is exactly the same as the others. So yes, you can apply that. And what Denzel mentioned, that's all very beautiful and all the rest of it. You use the locally sourced, responsible coffee and whatever for treatment. But when you clean the treatment room, you use the chemicals and the whole thing goes out to the bin, because you don't follow the whole process of how you need you should be, what kind of materials and liquids you would need to be using, which are not environmentally degrading. So you would need to look at it as its complexity, and then they are really going hand in hand, but they can still go parallel ways or even diversion.
I think you brought up a very important issue that is in COVID and post-COVID, this conflict here. I was talking about it yesterday in a completely different context, which is what will be the impact of COVID. This now preoccupation with sterilization and cleanliness will have a big problem of green, and environmentally friendly, because most of, as you were just saying, most of the chemicals that they're using to clean the places up, to make them are very strong, and hence we have a real issue here. The other real issue here we have is masks and all the products that we're buying. They're all non-biodegradable, and we want to get rid of them. And how are we going to get rid of all these masks that we're all wearing? It's a huge problem. And where are we going to put them all? How do we get rid of them? And it's, we have created a new problem which has to be tackled in an environmentally friendly way, and that's a very big challenge we haven't even got.
So now we're finding ourselves in an ambience that we want to keep the eco-sustainability, we want to save the planet, but we are facing a pandemic, a health situation that is forcing us to going back to chemicals and to going back to plastic and to filters and to all these kind of things. So thinking away from that box, like you said, Denzel, thinking out of the box. I mean, what will be your perspective on taking on these practices, taking into consideration the sustainability and the eco-friendly ways that we are promoting as wellness travelers, that we want to heal the planet? Like, thinking about right now, the pandemic is something that the pandemic has told me, is that the things that we've been doing were not working right. Whatever it is that we've been doing until now, we're not working right. So what are the things that, from that ecotourism perspective, from that sustainability perspective, that you guys can think, well, maybe we can do this and we can still, the planet will still survive? I mean, like you said, then, so what are we going to do with the masks?
Yeah. Leslie, you want to say something?
No, that's it. Go ahead.
I was thinking about this whole issue here at the moment about, the impact of COVID on ecotourism and how it does, to me, ecotourism normally means small scale, almost by definition. It's not written into the definition, but we are almost by definition saying we're we're doing it, the hotel to the facility, whatever it is a wellness. It's small. It has a lot of space. There's a lot of the relationship between the building and the environment is normally large. There's a big garden, or there's a beach, or a forest, or a desert, or whatever it is. Ecotourism, by definition, are relatively small numbers of people in relatively large areas. And that, by definition, is exactly what we want to have, isn't it? That is going to prevent further spread of any further virus or reoccurrence. So I think there's going to be a huge demand for that sort of facility. And we want fresh air, we want exercise, we want space, and the big thing that's my message for being locked in or whatever it is, that I am lucky. I have a beach, I have space in which I can work, and I was living on a farm for a bit of this time. Those who have space are the rich now. The really wealthy people and the really poor people are the people who don't have space to move around. And that is that division. So ecotourism, I think, and wellness tourism, I don't see a big difference. People for wellness purposes will want to go out and get into wide open spaces, and hence that's a healing process in itself. It's a mentally healing process as well as a physically healing process. So I'm not in Switzerland. I have friends in Switzerland, a lot of Swiss people are allowed to still have, all the way through this crisis, been allowed to walk in the mountains. That's amazing. They are lucky. They have that opportunity. There are not many big cities anyway. They've been able to get out of the weekend and go way up into the mountain because there's hardly anybody there. And these things, so they've been practicing ecotourism in a sense, and wellness tourism, without being aware of it.
I think destinations and operators, resorts, hotels, small and medium-sized enterprises, as well as cameras, if you wish, the chambers of commerce. They have a lot of things to sort out right now, and all these cleansing and the gloves and everything. It's a panic reaction, a short-term panic reaction, and people don't think of the repercussions that may come in 6 months' time, 1 year, because they want to sort it now and here. But if, let's say, for the sake of argument, talking about the Caribbean states or Central America, whatever it is, want to have guests, they might say that, guys, we came up with the idea of biodegradable masks, which are made of, I don't know, banana leaves or whatever it is. I don't know these protocols, but I'm sure we can create those. Or you can have eco cottons that you used to use for the compulsory T-shirt that I've been in Dominican Republic, if you wish, and you will go home with an eco-produced cotton T-shirt. Well, it's not T-shirt you want now, you want a mask. So from T-shirt, you shift to producing masks, and so on. So you have to think about how you have to apply all these challenges as opportunities. And then people say, oh, wonderful, this destination actually is thinking about it. They say that they are sustainable. And guess what? They prepared, and they're giving me as the guest a biodegradable mask, or maybe not yet, but they're giving out one, and they expect you to give it back because they will treat it accordingly when they collected it from me. And but this, you have to plan those things. And this is when one service provider may be not good enough. They don't have the funds, they don't have the access to producers, to selective collectors, whatever it is. But I think you have great opportunities in that sense, however stupid that sounds, because no one wanted to have a pandemic, but now we have one. So, all right, what shall we do about that? And, kind of tiny details like that. The last thing you want to do, to wear gloves and mask in the rainforest, that's not fun. You can't sell it as entertainment. This is just not going to work. Who the hell wants to sit on the beach with a mask on? I mean, seriously. I mean, no one wants to do that. But when you say that, I'm sorry that this is what the regulation is, and governments can do a lot of good and bad, with regulations which are necessary or not. But again, it's panic and some covering some issues, if you wish. But you really apply that we are using this and this I don't know, liquid which my grandmother used to be using for cleansing whatever she did, and now we bring it back, and so on and so on. But this is, you know, very local. You have to think about it how you can do it locally. Given, or you can give an option to ladies who are living in a village that now we make some masks. Don't do the t-shirts, don't do that, don't sew the presents because they can't buy it. Make masks from the same materials. But I don't know, you're closer to the place. I'm thousands and thousands of miles away. Is it possible, any such thing to happen, that you have a driving force?
I do think so.
Who can do that?
I do think so. It's one of the things that I've been talking about, and I think I mentioned that before you guys joined. The idea of business corporations, I believe, is more important right now than ever, locally. I mean, you hear here in the United States, a lot of people are making studies. You, Laszlo, are sending and doing one right now, sending out a poll where you're asking questions, trying to get ideas. And people are saying that domestic tourism is going to come stronger first than what, you know, international tourism is going to be, and makes a lot of sense. I mean, it does make sense. But at the same time, the way that I look at it is that domestic tourism means that you can actually fortify yourself as a destination, meaning let's create cooperation between all the local businesses around us to generate those kind of initiatives that you're talking about. So when we have visitors, even domestically or international, we are seen as a unified front, as a unified destination. We might compete between each other, yes, accommodations and restaurants and wellness spas and yoga studios or gyms, whatever you like. But at the end of the day, if we have one single front, like for example, we have an agricultural farm, let's talk to those guys. There's a lot of farms right now that are not selling any of their goods to restaurants or hotels because they're closed. And they're giving out their foods to food banks here, at least here in the United States. That's happening. I know that in Dominican Republic, there's a lot of initiatives going on right now, and in Central America and in South America as well, where all these producers, what they're doing is providing food to the local communities and food banks. Some of them are just selling it at lower cost. Some of them are just giving them out. I know an example of a Dominican Republic producer that he used to be delivering goods to resorts and hotels, and since he cannot do that anymore, he is vacuum sealing these goods and delivering it to homes at a better pricing. So there's, like you said, there's a lot of opportunities, and he's sustaining his business and sustaining the farmers and the producers that are still working with him. So he's also sustaining his community. So those kind of things are the things that can bring the tourism stronger, I believe, and your communities is stronger. Deborah, you have a question which I think will be directly for Denzel. I don't know what happened to Laszlo, but Deborah is saying over here, Denzel, that how can those of us with understanding and expertise in sustainability help drive the recovery agenda so that they deliver more sustainable policies and practices aimed at mitigating climate change or our greatest extinction threat? I think we kind of touched that right now with those created initiatives. And if you have anything else to jump in, to dive into more, I'm more than happy to hear your perspectives. I mean, Laszlo put a great example about the mask production. It's something that probably every single destination, every single hotel should be doing right now, reusable masks. Like they have reusable sheets.
So Deborah was asking about, you know, what steps can we... Well, I think the thing we're discussing now, which is that for governments to realize that traditional mass tourism in big hotels with, you know, large numbers of people eating together and you know, all, you know, packed into big spaces is not going to move forward for a long time, if ever. So that they need to rethink tourism policy. And I think, well, you know, these small eco lodges, ecotourism facilities around the world will be the first that people will go to. They will be much easier to manage and to build for people to keep distances, to have space, to have their own. I mean, there are many ways forward. I can see that people have the food served in their lodges. They have their massage. I was talking in another webinar a couple of days ago, GWI, about a facility that I think it's in Japan, where they have that. No, it was in Dubai. It's all being done in the suite. Everything is being supplied in separate suites. So that's the way in the early days it's going to go. And these sort of eco facilities in the rainforest are going to be ideal to do this type of tourism. But it's going to be expensive. That's a big issue. It's going to be expensive.
Let me throw in a little thing here. Serving food in the suites of the guests will certainly have way more environmental impacts than having a one place for dining. So it might be good for the individual guest, at least the person perceives that it's good for him, but in the totality of sustainability, actually it's a very bad solution. And this has been an issue forever. Sorry, just this side the sun is arrived. That which is good. That
hey, that's vitamin D. That's great.
Yes. Shall I turn that way? Maybe that. What's better? Is it better to manage the impacts of 100 people under one roof, or 100 people in separate lodges? And sadly, the impacts are less when you have 100 people under the same roof. So I think this is when it becomes the understanding and knowledge of what exactly you're doing. You can sell it. GWI loves to sell these things, and that's what really drives me crazy. There's just this is not the totality of what you're doing. It sounds fantastic, but when you are actually in the business and you understand the consequences of what you're doing, you recognize that the all in all actually is worse. And you're going to be separated, in a public transport from others. You might be separated in the place, but in a shopping center, you will not be separated from people with shields. So I think these things are taken out of proportion, and I have serious doubts how realistic these things are and how sustainable these actions are and how pointless these actions are in the long run. How I can be crucified here for being so, questioning all these things. But if you think about it seriously, and you think about how many more people you will need to do it, how many more cleaning would need to be happening, how many more times you're using the lift, and so on and so on, then all these wonderful ideas actually will be way more carbon footprint than having the dining place how it used to be. So just, if we are talking and discussing issues, I think it's worth to have a critical point on that.
Sure.
Coming from your experience, and this will be, promise, the last question, because we're running out of time, but we're good here. Nikki Page, since they have a client in the UK interested in sustainability and agrotourism, any good advice and examples for them to let them know about certain practices and best practices when it comes to agritourism, sourcing the local fruit, which I think is really important at this time?
I have a lot of experience. So that's where I can give you one very good project that was done in St. Lucia in the Caribbean. This is a hotel group. I don't want to mention the name. A big group, but they, in this particular thing, it was a cooperation with an agro-tourism, and I was one of the consultants, where the hotel, basically what happens is the hotel takes the guests every week, once a week. They only eat local food, right? Once a week, the whole meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner is a local meal. But much more important than that, that's the easy point, is that they take the guests out onto the farm. They go and watch the farmer. They then help pick the product, and they bring it back with the farmer and his family, and they then cook it up together and they eat it together. So it is I think it's a wonderful project. I think there could be many more. There are a lot of hotels that do a lot about, oh yeah, today we're going to choose a day where we only eat local food, and with a lecture about it. But there's no involvement with the community. The thing I found really good about this particular project was, as I say, that you actually go and see where it grows and how it comes out of the ground. You clean it up, you take it to the kitchen, and you work together with the grower, and you eat with him and his family. Obviously, there was language issues and things to get over, but not a lot. And that's what I think is real. That to me is the experience. And obviously, Laszlo wants to say something, but I mean that's my.
I just want to pull your legs, Denzil. That's just what I want to do. That. When you have all these locally sourced or 50 kilometers within the place, all these processes and all these approaches are very good. But when you tell guests that they don't have tea, they cannot have coffee, they wouldn't have any sugar, because that's obviously not locally sourced, you cannot have any of those things. So you might have honey as long as they have any honey left from last year. Then it becomes, we can hit hard that this is what it means that you locally source. You cannot have coffee because it's coming from, a different continent. You cannot have wine because you're living in the Nordic, so there's no wine there. So, these are lovely ideas and they can work in many places. But when you say that I will be sourcing everything now locally or within 50 kilometers away, no one will think about that they need to stay at your place without coffee, because they don't even think about it. You can do that.
I love this discussion.
It's only talking about 1 day a week, eh? The rest of the week.
Yes.
Two, I think you'll find if you go to Google, any Google restaurant in the world, they only serve food which is that's a policy of the Google company. To buy local, and if it's not on there, it's not on the menu. Okay, yeah, I agree that the tea and the coffee, if it's not possible. I mean, it is in the Caribbean. We can get our coffee and we can get tea.
Yes.
Occasionally, but
so everybody has to go to the Caribbean to drink coffee. Yes, that's what it is.
No, you can drink juice or you can do something else. But the principle, and I think that what was Deborah's point. If she's still there, but I mean that issue is also, I think we will go much more for local product. I think there will be a movement back, because even the feel that there's not a long supply chain that we don't know about, that we haven't had any control over. I think that will become a big issue again.
And this is when restaurant owners, chefs, hotels, and whoever it is would need to educate the guests that a free-range chicken, which was running yesterday in the backyard, is better for you than a lobster, which was traveling for God knows how many kilometers and hours. Although you are in a high-end restaurant, they expect you to have lobster and they expect you to have caviar and all the rest of it. But you can tell them that why don't you try something which is locally produced, because it's tastier, it's healthier, it helps the local economy and all the rest of it. But you have to build that story up. Otherwise, it will be the expectations of people who can afford it, because it will not be cheap. We'll say that, wow, but I'm used to have steak from Argentina. I used to have salmon from Norway. What are you talking about? Some chicken or some, I don't know, aubergine from the garden. I mean, how is that high end? Obviously, there are tools and there are methods and messages to achieve that, but we have to change the way in which we making it and talking about it, and then slowly guests will appreciate.
There is a lot when it comes to local sourcing. I'm a believer of local sourcing. I know that there is a lot of things. I mean, look, wine production, just to give you an example. We all love, some of us, most of us, love to have a cup of wine at the end of the day, just to watch the sunset, or even just to relax at the end of the week. And my favorite wine comes from Oregon. I mean, and some of them are French, or others are Malbec from Argentina. And I know that they're not produced in New York. I mean, some of the New York wines are really, really bad, just so you know. But you know, and I'm sorry if any lovers of New York wines are here. It's a matter of taste and delight. But I do believe in local sourcing. I do believe that the best way to even enhance your community and your offer is to have this local sourcing as part of your offering as a business. I thank you guys for your time. I thank everyone for their patience at the beginning because we had technical issues. It's part of the deal. We are live. We are really live here. This is not recorded. This is all of us in our homes while we're staying inside, dealing with technology and internet, and everybody in our houses using the internet at the same time that we do, which also affects the bandwidth. But I'm really
tell people
happy.
they can email questions to you or whatever.
Yes, I will
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
I was going to be my next step is that you will receive an email this afternoon with all this recording and also the way to contact Laszlo and the way to contact Denso at their respective companies, their respective email addresses. So if you have any more questions regarding this subject or you would like some guidance in any of the projects that you guys are working on, we're more than happy to help you. We're more than happy to be with you and to guide you through this journey. We're all in this together, and we all want to bring back the industry stronger and better for the forthcoming future. I mean, we want this to work, right? We're all in this to work, right? So thank you guys so much.
And just as a thank you, Storyboard, for the organization and anyone in this spa and wellness world, locally sourced is the magic approach. That's probably even better than in catering. If you can locally source it and you can build on it, you're done. You're done. But you have to work on that. But absolutely, no question.